All right, welcome in everybody. Chris Clark here, GamecockCentral.com. And it is another GC Live. Hope everybody's doing well here on this Wednesday. Gamecock Ryan already in the chat. Ryan normally able to join us on Fridays, but we have an unexpected live viewing by him today. So thrilled for that. T. Thompson, Greg McClellan, always in here early, and they're in here today. Much appreciated. Hope you guys are doing well, and your guys and girls, hope y'all are doing well. Today, Wednesday, that is another press conference day. Shane Beamer, of course, speaking to Gamecock Nation and to the media yesterday during his press conference. Today, we heard from Marcus Satterfield. We heard from Clayton White, Colin Taylor over there covering at the press conference. I was listening from the home office. Wrote up a little piece actually on Marcus Satterfield. If you want to go check that out, it is on GamecockCentral.com's front page right now as we speak, as we do this show. And it breaks down some of the very interesting, changes or tweaks that have been made this season and how things could change with Zeb Nolan in at quarterback. Zeb Nolan, of course, also speaking to the media today. A couple players spoke. Zeb was one of those. Talked about the stash, talked about regaining the starting job. So good stuff there. We'll dive a little bit into what Clayton White said, what Marcus Satterfield said. As is typical on this show, we're probably going to talk a little bit more about the offensive side of the ball. That's been where the fan base's attention has been more directed. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about Satterfield. There are just a lot of storylines to examine there. And I thought there was some really interesting stuff that came out of the press conference just in terms of what he said, going over some of the changes that have been made, going over how some things could be done differently. SC Scout guy looking good, Wes. Yes, I do continue to get, I think it was this weekend, this past weekend at the Vanderbilt game, we had another subscribers only Gamecock Central tailgate. And I did have somebody come up and say, hey, Wes, right? Had my name tag on that said Chris. I'm Chris. No problem. Doesn't matter. It's all good. Hey, worst people I could be compared to or mistaken for than Wes Mitchell. Wes is not in today, taking a day off, but I'm excited because at 2:15, I'm going to be joined by former Gamecock defender, as Michael Beckham, our friend, says, the last Gamecock Spur. Sharrod Golightly will join us. He played several years for the Gamecocks, made a ton of plays. Excited about having him on. He's been contributing, if you haven't noticed, for all of this football season. He has been doing some defensive breakdowns for us. Nick Jones, former Gamecock wide receiver, and there was some carryover between those guys on the same teams. Nick has been doing some offensive breakdowns. So we changed it up this week a little bit where I'm going to have Sharrod on, keep him for a little while because I want to go a little bit more in depth, just kind of look back at his career, see what he's doing now, just catch Gamecock Nation up on what Sharrod is doing. And kind of look back at some guys. He made some big plays in his career. And so I've got a couple in particular from the same game outlined and ready to go that I want to get him to talk about. And we're also going to go over a few clips of the Gamecocks on defense and on offense just for him to kind of break down those things live. So that should be neat. Sharrod supposed to join me about 2:15. He is a working man during the day, so bear with us on the time a little bit, but we should be good. Sharrod getting his work noticed. He was actually on the early game this morning, 107.5 The Game. Those guys had him on. So good job by Sharrod. Glad to see him getting recognized for what he's been doing. Really sharp guy, great guy, and obviously a really, really sharp and smart football player. So first of all, before we dive in, our show, as always, is presented by Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network. If you are in the market for a new home and you have questions about what that may look like from a mortgage standpoint, hey, how much is my payment going to be? What can I afford, etc.? Hit up Clint. Here's his card if you're on the YouTube stream, as you should be. C. Hammond at mortgagenetwork.com, NMLS number 71597, and you can reach him at 803-576-4450 or 803-422-6797. That's C. Hammond at mortgagenetwork.com. Great Gamecock, great friend of the program, supporter of the show. So if you like this show and you're considering a refinance or you have mortgage questions, whatever it may be, please make sure you go to Clint first. So you can give him the first crack at your business. He would appreciate it. We would appreciate it too. He does a lot for the show. So yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Again, if you've got questions, if you've got comments, drop them in. I'm about to get to some of those right now. As always, if there are any comments or questions that we put up, those are brought to you by our friends at Primal Gourmet. 20% off your first order at Primal Gourmet if you go to their website and you hit the promo code GCOCK20. Let me see if I can get that up for you right here on the screen. Yeah, that's primalgourmetsc.com. Promo code GCOCK20. And guys, I have not forgotten. Hold me to it. Anyone who makes a comment, I am keeping a log, sometimes in the old brain, sometimes on paper. If you comment, if you drop a question here on our Primal Gourmet chat line, I am logging it. You will still have an opportunity to win a free Primal Gourmet meal. I have a big stack of them, and I'm going to mail a bunch of them out at once. So that'll give you an opportunity to win a free meal. So John Wilson in first on the Primal Gourmet chat line. No mention of playing time for E.J. Jenkins on the press conference. Your thoughts on E.J. getting more reps? And that's a great point. It did not come up today. I think there was a lot more focus just on Zeb Nolan. Probably should have been some E.J. Jenkins questions. There have been at different points of the year. E.J.'s a guy that has still played, right? He's still gotten some snaps. He had a really nice catch in the Vanderbilt game. Didn't come up specifically today on Wednesday. Now, is there any particular reason for that? I don't really think so. The two guys that Marcus Satterfield talked the most about offensively, I thought this was kind of telling, and I was gonna get into this a little bit more today, actually. So it's a good kind of segue. There were two guys that he talked about how they had to get the ball to basically offensively, kind of taking the quarterback situation out of it. And those guys were, you could probably guess, Jaheen Bell and Juju McDowell. And he said this in answering a question about Jaheen specifically, but he brought up Juju and looped him in with that. And so what he basically said was, hey, we don't want to leave a game. We don't want to finish a game. And we finished the game and said, we got Jaheen the ball once and Juju twice, or Jaheen once and Juju twice, something like that. He said, like the Georgia game, we didn't get Juju a touch in that game. That can't happen. And so I thought that was interesting. And look, not surprising, though. Juju McDowell, at times, guys, even as a freshman, has looked like South Carolina's best running back. And some of that can be attributed to the fact that South Carolina has not been able to get the interior run on track, haven't been able to do it. And so that means a guy like Juju McDowell, who's really adept at getting into space on the perimeter, they've had to call more of those plays. That's right up his alley or down his alley, whatever you want to call it, in terms of his skill set. And so he's thrived in that. He's looked dangerous catching the ball. He's looked dangerous as a kick returner. And then Jaheen Bell's obviously got, just a unique skill set. He's just kind of different than other people with where you can line him up and what he can do. As for E.J. Jenkins, he's still been out there some. There's still some packages that are kind of tailored to him or after him, whether it's red zone stuff or whatever it may be, some certain route combinations they like to run with him. Should he play more? Maybe so. I think it's a fair point. There are several guys on this team, I think, that you could look at and say, this guy needs to touch the ball more. Now, primarily, a couple of those are Jaheen and Juju, but you've also got Marshawn Lloyd and Kevin Harris and Zaquandre White. Those are all guys that have done things or have shown some flashes of being able to do things where you need to get them the ball more. Josh Vann has done some things. Nick Muse has done some things. Somebody brought up a Marion Brown. His speed is certainly still an asset. He's still played. He's been out there some games more than others. Hasn't made a huge impact at this point. But is he someone that you can find some more space for? Xavier Legette with the game-winning catch at Vanderbilt. A lot of these guys, we're talking about getting them the ball more, but there have been other factors that have kind of prevented that. Sometimes it's lack of offensive snaps. If you play 50, low 60s in offensive snaps a game, it's hard to distribute as much. If you're going 3 and out, if you're going 5 and out and punting, tougher to distribute the ball right around. If you're turning it over, you can't finish off drives. Those things make it more difficult. And so for EJ and for some other guys, I think it's kind of a symptom of this greater issue in some ways of the offense just not being as effective as it needs to be. Greg on the Primal Gourmet chat line. What's up, Greg? Z White needs to start the game Saturday. What do you think, Chris? Yes, I do. And Marcus Satterfield mentioned that today, too, about how Shane Beamer came to him. Talked about halftime of the Vandy game. Let's get Z White some touches immediately after the second half. When the third quarter opens, they were able to do that. He did some nice things in that game for sure in space. Got really good vision. He's got some wiggle. He's got some speed, some toughness to him. The running back room has been interesting in terms of just how they've rotated it, how they had to rotate it at times because of some guys being injured or banged up. So certainly, I think Zaquandre White, based on what he did and the fact that some of the running backs are still a little banged up, I could see him playing a good bit in this game. The key will be, how we don't really know yet. We don't have a sense. Marcus Satterfield said that all the guys practice and they expect to get Juju back and they hope everybody will be available, all four of those backs on Saturday to make the trip to Texas. But he kind of left it a little bit up in the air on some of those guys. So I think one thing you can bank on is, it seems like with Juju healthy and back, they anticipate him having him back, that they're going to integrate him in this offense because Satterfield spent a good part of the press conference talking about how they needed to. Beyond that, the pecking order may in part be dictated by health of the team and who's healthy. But I certainly think Zaquandre White has earned, the right to go out there and play. And Marcus Satterfield was clear that there was nothing he did wrong. He was still practicing well, that he had been playing well in the games. And there had been more of a concerted effort to kind of get him on the field. And then he was able to take advantage of the opportunities that he got on Saturday. John Wilson with another question here on the Primal Gourmet chat line. What are your thoughts on so many offensive line holding calls? Yeah, that's something that's been hard to figure out. Again, Wes and I have discussed this a little bit in terms of when you're holding a guy, are you doing it because you're physically beat? Are you mentally beat in terms of you're late? You're not sure what you're unsure. You don't want to be unsure on the offensive line. If you're unsure, the play's over. If you're unsure, you're losing, and so if you're unsure and you're having to come back to a guy and you're a half step late or even less than that, sometimes you're going to have a hard time. And so are you holding then? Or are you holding because you know where to be, but you're physically beat? There can be some different causes for that. And so I wish I could answer it. I don't have a great answer for it. Probably the reality, it's been some of both. And we've even seen some issues, some communication issues that have led to some free rushers. As our guy, who was it? Gamecock Ryan on the Primal Gourmet chat line. Yeah, nobody ever holds those guys at South Carolina. Apparently the opposition each week, the offense that South Carolina faces, their offensive line always have their best performance ever in terms of not holding, not just a general performance in the run game or the pass game, but they really get coached up before they play. JJ and Igbare, Aaron Sterling, Zach Pickens, Jabari Ellis, Jordan Birch, Jordan Strong. They have absolutely, apparently, barely held these guys at all. So very impressive job by all seven of the opposing offensive linemen that have played the Gamecock defensive line. Incredibly impressive, apparently, performance. If you can't detect it, a little bit of sarcasm in there, right? Hopefully we'll get Sharrod on here soon. I'm going to be double checking with him here while I'm talking. So just bear with me. We're not that fancy. We don't have a producer on the show. I'm solo today. So just bear with me. All right. I'm not going to sit here and give you dead air, but just do a little bit. John Mullins, Primal Gourmet, they hold Zach Pickens every game. Yeah. I mean, you've seen some of that stuff. And, there was a holding penalty. I think I brought it up with Wes yesterday. There was a holding penalty on Nick Muse that was pretty bad. I think he just pancaked the guy. So, sometimes, every Carolina game I've ever been to, on almost any successful passing play by the opposition, there's always holding calls. If there's kind of resistance by an opposing lineman, and there's always a call from the crowd from holding. A lot of times there's not, but a lot of times there is, so there is kind of this saying in football that you could call holding on any given play. You probably could, right? And suffice it to say, have they missed some on Carolina? Have they missed some in terms of Carolina's guys getting held? Probably so. More to dive in terms of Marcus Satterfield's press conference. Interesting thing with him talking about the changes in the offense between Luke Doty and Zeb Nolan. He already answered some of these questions in two different times earlier this year. So one is when Luke was presumed as the starter, was going to be the starter, and then things shifted to Zeb Nolan before the Eastern Illinois game. Satterfield and Beamer had to answer questions of what will the offense look like with Zeb coming in. Then when it changed back to Doty, it was how does the offense now change with Luke coming in? And now we hear it again, right? We hear, Zeb Nolan back in the fold. How will it change? So interesting that basically what Satterfield said was it's not going to be a wholesale change. He said it wouldn't look a lot different, but he did outline some key differences, some smaller things. One of them is they may be under center more, which may give them some better opportunities in the run game because you don't have an offset back. Everything's kind of balanced out. That might help. Obviously, you're going to be running more play action with Zeb Nolan because he's not as effective as a runner as Luke Doty. He's not as mobile, so there's not going to be, as he termed it, a run-friendly environment. So there will be some differences there. In terms of what you see, you might see some more deep shots. Marcus Satterfield said that they're going to be able to, this was kind of a funny term, program Zeb Nolan like he's a robot, but program him, to be able to get the ball to the two guys that he mentioned, Jaheen Bell and Juju McDowell. All right, looks like Sharrod. Give me a thumbs up if you're good, if you can hear me. All right, Sharrod coming on in. What's up, Sharrod? How you doing, man?
Hey, man, it's a beautiful day in Atlanta. How you doing?
Everything's going well, man. I appreciate you joining me. Former Gamecock Spur, Sharrod Golightly, Gamecock Central contributor for the 2021 season. Been doing an awesome job. Apparently your work's getting recognized, man. Saw you did a 107.5 The Game this morning. Little radio hit. How did that go? How was that?
An earlier conversation than usual, but I loved it. I loved it, man. Got a little small pieces of information. Just try to share it with them, things that I've seen.
Yeah.
Just try to bring some history, make it relevant.
No doubt. Well, we're going to dive into some history, actually, of your playing days. I want to hit that later, if that's cool. But first of all, so a lot of Gamecock fans have not heard from you in a while, aside from just reading, your analysis on GamecockCentral.com all season. What are you up to right now in Atlanta? What are you doing?
Well, I'm glad you asked, man. I got my own 501c nonprofit, Go Hard with Golightly. Our mission is to bring different platforms and stages for our kids in our Decatur, East Atlanta area for them to stand out. I got a partnership with Tyler Perry Studios, United Way. I've been on that Nike campaign, Until We All Win Nike campaign. Just been the past 4 or 5 years just trying to make sure that everything that I needed when I was growing up, I make sure that those kids have those opportunities as they grow up, and just try to add different curriculums to show our greatness.
Okay, good stuff. So can you tell us where, if someone's interested in learning more, maybe donating to the foundation, where they can find out more information?
Love to tell you, man. I got my own website, the gohardwithgolightly.com. You can definitely tap in with my Instagram, EA_Golightly, EA_Golightly, and my business page, which is Go Hard with Golightly. Everything is all on social media right now, and a lot of things are on the internet. But if you want to donate to our upcoming events, we have mental awareness coming up with a lot of different. We're using yoga kind of help kids reset mentally and just bring some type of awareness early, so they know they have options to make themselves healthier in the mental space. So yeah, man, I'm excited.
Good stuff, man. Well, commend you for doing that great work in your hometown and in your home region there in Georgia, Decatur, right?
Yes, sir.
Southwest DeKalb High School.
Yes,
Wanted to go there next. So I remember I'm dating myself a little bit now, making me feel old, but I covered your recruiting back in the day, class of 2010, right? I out of Southwest DeKalb. So someone actually brought it up on the Primal Gourmet chat line here that, South Carolina, actually their opponent last week, Vanderbilt, that's who they beat for you. You were committed, right, to the Commodores at one time. Look back on that process for us. Like, you were committed to Vandy, South Carolina came after you. You ended up heading to South Carolina. Look back on the recruiting process for us and kind of what that was like and why you made that decision to go to South Carolina at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, when I was going through my recruiting process, I just wanted to make sure I had something solid as far as education. And when I was real big on education coming out of high school and make sure I had something after football. So Vanderbilt stood out immediately because I knew how strong their academic side was. That all changed though when I took my first visit to South Carolina. When I got to Carolina and I had met up with Coach Lorenzo Ward and all the different defensive backs that were already there, and different players, I knew it was more of a connection with us, deeper than just academics. It was a strong connection as far as willpower, leadership, and just to understand where you wanted to be and how good you wanted to be. And we wanted to change something at the program. And when we hit it off, I kind of made that switch immediately. Like I said, Vanderbilt was a great school. I think it was a good school as far as academics. But like I said, I think it stuck in my mind that it don't matter where you go, it's who you are. So it's just thinking like the more that you can just take advantage of the spaces that you're in, it don't matter what school you in, opportunity comes to people that make them. So I just thought like South Carolina was something that was going to be special, and it was.
Well, and you definitely made the most of your opportunity and had a great run there, man. You signed up for, kind of that golden age of Gamecock football, your first year, the 2010 class, right? I know I said that earlier.
Oh, yeah, man. Marcus Lattimore, Bruce, Nick Jones, A. Sanders.
That's right. Dylan Thompson, JT
Dylan
Surratt,
Thompson,
underrated guys.
AJ Can, yeah.
Byron Jerido, who's now on staff at Carolina. So, there were some good ones in that class, no doubt, and some underrated guys like yourself probably. And so, you signed up, like I said, for the golden age. So first year, y'all go to the SEC title game, and then obviously 2011 through 13 was that great run, 33-6. You played the spur position. That's what everybody always talks about. How did that happen as far as the coaching staff deciding to slot you there, and why were you such a good fit for that spot?
Chris, I had to get on the field, man. I had to get on the field. I think we were coming out of Auburn. We had just lost to Auburn at home. And I just knew I could help some way, somehow. And I remember that week we were getting prepared for the next game. I told Coach Ward, I was like, I gotta get on the field somehow. And I'm just sitting back watching. I'm just seeing time go by. I was like, what can I do now to get me ready for next year? And he was like, hey, man, we're already thinking about getting you closer to the line of scrimmage, something that you were used to doing in high school. And I was like, when y'all was going to plan to do that? He was like, we're going to move you in the spring. I was like, oh, no. If I know that, I'm going to move now. Let me move now. And at the time, the position coach was Coach Butler. And I was like, hey, Coach Butler, I'll jump in the room with you right now. I'll learn everything I need to know. So by the spring, I'm already mentally there. All I have to do is make plays. And that was the best decision I made in my life, man. And I told Antonio Allen and Devontae Holloman, y'all my new big brothers. Like, and I told them, everything you know, I'm gonna be in your pocket. I need to know. And like I said, attitude, flair, leadership, man, they kind of showed me the way. And then by the time I got there, I had the mental fortitude and the physical kind of had caught up. So it was easier to kind of describe what we were trying to expect as leaders.
So at that time when you moved, it was Devontae and Antonio were also playing the Spurs. So a couple good guys to learn from.
Yeah.
Devontae ended up moving to safety. Is that right? Like he
yes.
moved to safety when you took over at Spur. All right. So playing close to the line of scrimmage, that was an interesting thing. You said Lorenzo Ward wanted to get you closer to the line of scrimmage. You played there a lot. Like if anybody goes back and you watch some old games from, 2011, 2012, 13, you'll see Sharrod playing close to the line of scrimmage, which is interesting because you're not going to be offended by me saying this. You're not 6'3", 230.
Yeah.
You're not as big as Devontae or even as big as Antonio was.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you so adept at playing close to the line and making plays against guys way bigger than you?
It got a lot to do with your heart, man. Fear is the thing that kind of separates a lot of people. When I got into those trenches, I never had fear. I knew if I could get to you before you got to me, I win. So I just tried to use the things that I was great at: getting off the line fast, had quick hands, quick feet. I'm a sure tackler when I need to be, and just making sure that I use my advantages. I wasn't the tallest, but I was really quick. I mean, I wasn't strong, but I was stout. So it wasn't like I was being moved left and right. I think, like I said, the easiest part was just using my attributes that I used in high school and just moving that towards the college round. And I had already learned 2 years of learning the back end, secondary end. So just adding another level of understanding with the box and understanding those trenches, man, it made the game so much easier for me. And like I said, once I understood football, leadership wasn't a problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So after that, it was just it was a beautiful marriage. That's why I think like that 2013 year was a very special year for us. The 11-2 year, I think we beat Wisconsin. I think that was a really special year for me because I told myself when I got to that point, I was gonna lead us to a space where we can kind of stand out. And hey, man, we did that. We did that.
And we're gonna go back and look at some of those plays here in a little bit. The Wisconsin game, I didn't get to cut that one, but the one that everybody always talks about, people have brought it up on this show several times. The 4th-and-1 stop against Wisconsin that you had. I don't know if you probably remember the one I'm talking about, but that was a big one in that game. And there's some others, and we're gonna go over a couple of those. But to go back to your time at South Carolina there, I'll ask you something we always do, former players. Who are some of the best guys that you played against? Like some guys that you were like, from Georgia, Florida, Clemson, wherever it may have been that gave y'all problems, and you're like, that guy's really good.
Justin Hardy from ECU.
Yeah,
he was really good. He was really good out that slot. I think he stood out a lot. Am I watching on tape? Randall Cobb was really good. Randall Cobb.
We all know Randall Cobb was good.
Randall Cobb was really good to stand out. And at LSU, man, Jeremy Hill.
Oh yeah.
He was really good. He was really good. I think that was his coming out party. That was his first best game, I think, against us. He really surprised me. I think he was really a standout performer. If I had to choosing defensive guys that we've seen or went against, Greg Reed. Greg Reed from Florida State. We played him in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. He literally took over that game by himself. And I think, he stood out. And Purifoy from Florida. I seen him beat us on special teams at Florida, literally. We couldn't block him.
Right. Was that the 2012 game? You mentioned, I think, a couple of those. The 2012 game, that was the game y'all lost, I think, 44-11. And Florida only had 150 yards of offense, something like that. That one, the LSU game, the 2-point game there at night, Jeremy Hill broke off that long run. That was
crazy night. LSU crazy.
So let me, this is painful to say, but if y'all win one of those games, y'all are playing in the SEC title game, right? Do y'all win the national title that year if you just get one of those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm
you
sure.
Thought about that a lot, right?
Yeah, I'm sure of it. Especially that 12 year. I mean, 2012, we really were dangerous. We were really dangerous. I think we just had like a lack of focus on one of those games. And in our conference, you slip, it costs you everything.
Yeah, and that's what I've always said that. I mean, that was by a good margin the best team that I've seen, in my opinion, at South Carolina was that 2012 team. All right, so what about teammates, right? Like we know you play with a lot of really good players at South Carolina, but what most impressive teammate, like, is there something that Clowney did that, like, we saw a lot of the things he did in the game, but like in practice, something that Clowney did or Marcus did that was just like, wow. I think we might have lost Sharrod. Let me see if we can get him back. Sharrod, you have to come on back in, man. Yep, here you are. I think we got you now. Did you lose me for a minute?
Well, as far as teammates that stood out, first of all, I gotta give a lot of credit to my close friend still to this day, DJ Swearinger. I think he did a great job holding everybody accountable at every moment. At every moment. Even then when there was times when we got comfortable, you can get comfortable being young and winning. It was times he kept the main thing the main thing. I think he did a great job. Connor Shaw did a great job leading by example. He wasn't the most vocal guy. He didn't do all the rah-rah because we had those guys, but he knew what space to take over, and that was on the field, man. He led with his actions. He never let us down off the field, never had any off-the-field issues. He was always there, and I think to be able to count on some people and they deliver like that, I think that's the biggest thing on character I can describe. Another teammate I think was really good with Shaq Wilson. I think Shaq did a great job of just bringing young cats in and teaching. He did a great job of that. Everything that he wasn't great at, he'll make sure that you knew how to do it. And he always passed game. Shaq, to this day, that Diesel, we call him Diesel. He's still a good guy, man. That's still somebody real close to me. And yeah, man, I think with those 3 or 4 guys, and man, multiple others. Like we did a lot of self-checking. But with those 3 or 4, and I can't forget my brother, Terence Campbell.
Oh yeah, no
doubt. Yes, Terence Campbell. He wasn't the star on the field, but he was our leader for sure. Yeah. On and off the field. And he performed. He never let us down as far as, like I said, off the field. And like he was an OG to us because he was there a little bit longer than us. But he knew what it was before we started winning and as it was when we started winning. So like I think he set that table as far as what our standard was going to be as far as when we got to summer workouts, winter workouts.
Yeah.
Those months that you build up.
Before we dive into some of the clips, Sharrod, from this season and even a couple from your career, the guys that you just mentioned for the most part, or I think almost all of them, they were gone in your last year in 2014. And obviously in 2014, like things didn't go as well on the field. The defense took a big step back. Was the leadership and some of the guys that y'all lost, do you think that was the biggest reason? Or what do you think happened? There's a lot of theories like for what happened that year. What's your perspective on it?
Well, I think a lot of it was it was a mix up between our coaches changing and then having new kids come in.
Yeah.
So when we have coaches change, it's hard for them to tell you what our standard is if they didn't build that standard. They're just watching film and telling you what it looked good. You should do that. You know what I mean? And by the time that we got to when our players came in, when it was time to learn what the new Gamecock way was, I don't think that sometimes I don't think the points of how to get to that point were actually taught. And I think we skipped over some steps in the process of actually being a great team. Yeah. And I think we had all the talent in a lot of spaces. But I remember it was, winter workouts. But I just knew it was parts in those workouts. Some of the kids or some of the teammates might not be as accountable. They'd be like, "Oh, we good? We'll win that game. We should be good." And I think a lot of the young people that did come in, I don't think they understood the work that was put in to be a winner. You just thought it was an expectation. So I wasn't necessarily blaming on one thing. It was just a perfect storm. And like I said, like that year before, 2013, we won a lot of games close. So that same thing, then the next year, we just lost a lot of games close. So that's why I was just trying to tell them, like, those little things that build up to that season, every slip counts. Every slip counts. And I think that was a learning experience. Sure.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Good perspective there. And I think we heard some of those things, similar things from some of the other former players about just kind of what happened there. So let's dive in. I got 2 clips I want to look at. All right. So this is actually a game from 2014 that did go y'all's way. And it was a game that actually, it kind of changed the course of history. The Florida game in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, for that one. Crazy game. Y'all looked dead in the water. Come up with a big punt block, go down and score. Game goes to overtime. You end up winning. And it changed the course because Will Muschamp was fired from Florida after that game.
I remember.
He eventually would go on to become South Carolina's coach and was at South Carolina for 5 years. So some crazy things happened in this game. Now, maybe all that would have happened eventually anyway. I don't know, but it definitely happened after this game. So I'm going to put some of these clips up on the screen. We will go off the screen, you and I will, Sharrod, but we'll still be on here and we'll just kind of talk over it. I can't pause the clip, but we'll just look over it. So this clip is from overtime. Florida got the ball first. And then I think they gained 7 or 8 yards on first down. And so then it looks like, okay, they might be driving. But here's the clip. And that's actually you making the play right there.
Yeah.
Little Treon Harris at quarterback here, right? So y'all are outnumbered here.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
I wish I could pause this for you.
I wish my man Sky was supposed to scrape over the top of me. He bit in the gap too early. The whole game he was running outside. I'm trying to tell these guys, man, just scrape.
Well, as it happens here, I mean, what do you see here? Really good patience, and you take on an offensive lineman and Matt Jones, the Florida running back. I'm not sure what he's doing here. He doesn't block anybody. So
yeah, so in my mind, my idea was at least take up a blocker so my guys can come free. I know 2 of them would try to come. So when I try to get both of them, and then I saw an opportunity to make a tackle, I'm like, I'm not gonna play with you 2. I'm just gonna go make the play.
Right.
And then, thank God I did, because that was a big one. I think that was a big one for sure.
That was a big one. Another one here. Now this is the next play. This is 3rd and 3.
Yeah.
So Florida they end up having to settle for a field goal. Of course, South Carolina scores a touchdown and wins it on the next drive of overtime here, but they run a little pass here.
I was really excited in this overtime just because I knew mentally what we needed. I don't know. I was really amped. I really wanted this. I really wanted this win for sure, especially against Florida, at Florida, for Spurs. So it's like I couldn't believe that they kept throwing it to my side and running to my side. Like, like it was just the best side to go at. I remember for the most part of the game, they kept going towards Bryson Allen Williams' side at the end.
Yep.
Because I know that year he had a problem going inside a lot instead of staying outside for the leverage. But that whole overtime period, they kept coming my way, and I was like, "Thank you, because we can wrap this up real quick."
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, so you beat the blocker there and make the play. Florida has to settle for a field goal. Carolina goes down and scores, and y'all get a big win. So, all right, I got some from this season for you. All right, that I want to show. The first one, I'll have to admit, it's a little bit of a troll. I kind of thought it was funny. Tell me what you remember about this play. This is similar to something you'll recognize. This is against Vandy. Now, this is a good play, but what do you recognize about this? And why do you think I'm showing you this play?
Ooh,
All right. In 2014, y'all could not stop this play. This little, you remember like this little pass?
Yeah.
Clemson ran it. I mean, y'all could not stop it. Not you, but the defense could not stop it. I mean, it was like a big point of emphasis. In discussion point. So,
can you play that one more time?
Yeah. No, I wish I could pause it for you, but
yeah, like I was saying, like we had went from having tall, bigger DNs. Yeah, Devin Taylor, Clowney, and all the etceteras. And then we knew we had smaller DNs or smaller linebackers that we were trying to force to use as contained guys. We switched that scheme up. Some of those guys, we had to rush to start playing early. And I don't think all of those guys were really mentally prepared to be in those spaces. Yeah. So when shots started firing, things started moving real fast, I deer in the headlights sometimes. And I think some teams will really pick on that. They'll go tempo, just move it. Especially when we played Auburn. I remember that specifically in Texas A&M. They did a lot of that moving in and outside. And I think we were super, super stout at protecting those edges before. And I think that year we kind of struggled. And I think we used a lot of our Like we try to out scheme some of our shortcomings. So I was thinking like we should have just kept it simple, and I don't know, gave some other guys opportunities.
Yeah. So I got a good question here in the Primal Gourmet chat line from Travis. I think you just misspelled your name there, but can you ask what similarities Sharrod sees between this 4-2-5 and the one he played in? So obviously, that was kind of a big talking point, man, and maybe I don't know, maybe a little bit overdone because with Clayton White bringing the current 4-2-5 to South Carolina, I mean teams have played nowadays. They play a good bit of nickel anyway, right?
Yeah.
But what are kind of the differences between like the spur position that you played? And then from what you've seen from South Carolina this year, their nickel position, that's, I guess, a little bit more like a true like DB, right? What have you seen?
I think when we were coming up, I think they used that nickel position more of an added lineman to a lot of situations. So if we were to slant or use different zone blitzes, that added guy could be a utility guy. He could cover, he could blitz, he could play the zone, and he could or he could just stay home and make a sure tackle. I think this newer scheme that they're running is more pass. It's more for passing teams. With us, I think that it was a little more responsibility on that position to be able to switch based on whatever scheme we're going against. Some teams you might have to be on the line. I remember we played a couple teams, and I was definitely a D. I felt like a DN the whole game. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I was coming off the edge and containing the entire game, but that was my job. I remember other games, I was playing the slot the entire game and covering the entire game and not being in the box as much. But I think they took, not knowing this, but at the time we were that spur position, I didn't know or understand how important or how intelligent you had to be to play that position. And when I got into that position, going into my sophomore year, my true sophomore year, for my redshirt freshman year, I was like, okay, now I understand why I can excel in this area. So that made it a lot easier to shine because it was more of a mental thing. But I think this newer scheme, like I said, just more about just protecting against the pass, and just having somebody there to cover for sure.
So I'll get more of your thoughts on Carolina this year because we've talked about some of the things they're doing well, some of the things that they're struggling with a bit. Want to get some of that. One more on the old defense. How would you guys get the play calls in? And then can you give me an example since let's go like Ellis Johnson isn't coaching right now, so we're not going to give away too much. Like what would be like an example play call and then break down kind of what it means? Like how are you getting the signal or the call from the sideline, and how do you break that down in your mind and set everybody?
Well, what we used to do is I remember especially with Coach Johnson, he would give us two calls. He'll give you two options. And if you see something based on that thing that you see, we'll make an adjustment. We'll go either one way or the other way. So it's always a thinking. It'll be something that it'll make you think. It won't be nothing that was concrete. You know what I mean? So it'll give everybody the defense an opportunity to kind of read and adjust instead of just actually being in a gun-hole position and then just having to make a play, even if it's wrong. So I love the fact that he gave us, like, he'll give us say for instance, we go to a zone blitz and we're bringing our strong safety or our boundary safety at the time. We'll bring him down. We'll make sure that everybody on the back end has every bit of communication that when that dude goes down, we need someone to replace him. All right. We have to have that communication. I think we did a great job of I don't want to say yelling, but we made sure everybody heard everything. And I made sure everybody was on the same page. And if you weren't, when you were not, it'll be real clear. Like, hey man, we can't put you out here because you're not on the same page. So like I said, I think what we used to do a lot of is making sure that we had at least two options when the ball was snapped, to have a adjustment so you can have a proper reaction.
Very interesting. All right, so let's go to Carolina's defense this year before I let you run, Sharrod. Give us kind of your broad sense of what you've seen from the defense. What are they doing well right now, and what have you seen that have been some kind of problem areas on this team that have been giving them difficulties?
All right, I'm gonna start with bad. The things I've seen Well, that kind of bothered me were the linebackers. One thing with the linebackers, I think sometimes as the game proceeds, they lose their depth. I think me and you had this conversation before. When you lose your depth, it makes you almost a part of the D line, and it's hard for you to fill gaps because you're already in one. So it gives the running back opportunity to run away from your gap. And I think it hurts their vision and shooting gaps and staying outside, inside, filling, boxing, spilling, all those things that they need to do. It makes it hard to do that when you don't have that depth. And I think as they get tired sometimes and the game goes on, they start to scoot closer to the line of scrimmage. And you can get lost. You can get lost in that sauce sometimes. So taking a step back is super, super important. The reason why they need to make that step is I'm not really sure we have dominant pass rushers this year, but we do have stout guys that can hold gaps. So when it comes to holding gaps and not having really that pass rush, linebackers have to be right. You can't be wrong if your D line isn't dominating. You know what I mean? So we have dominating plays at times, but I haven't seen an entire game where we dominated 1 through 4. And I think they have that potential to do those things, but I don't think they have yet. As far as the DBs, I think they are very ball heavy. I think they're good at playing the ball in the air at times, but I would love to see them get a little more physical when it comes to playing the run. We in week 6, 7, something like that. I think you should be real comfortable with being physical at this time. Teams can't be so comfortable feeling like they can run like that, run against our team like they are at this point. I just think like being more physical as an entire defense, being more before the play starts, being more proactive and taking a step back and being more adept in the alignment, just taking more pride in getting to the ball. I think we do that, man. The sky's the limit. Now, as a good thing, the good thing that we do, I love the fact that we do have a lot of takeaways. I don't know if it's a boatload of them, but every game I almost see somebody on defense with the ball, and that breeds confidence after a while. I love seeing us get the ball out because the more opportunities we give our offense, the better, especially in this space. So I think the defense is really good at being stingy and taking the ball away. So I think they do a great job of that. But if they could just be more consistent on third down, and like I said, stopping the run, you would get the ball even more. It's more opportunity for turnovers. So yeah, man, I'm super excited for them though.
Good stuff, Sharrod. Well, all right, man. I kept you even longer than I intended. I really appreciate you making time today to chat with us. Gamecock Nation loves hearing from you, man, and we'll continue doing our written analysis. We'll get back at that after the A&M game. If you're still good with that, we'll continue doing that. But, hey, man, I really appreciate getting to hear more of your perspective as always, and I hope you have a good rest of the week, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, man, appreciate you, Chris. Go Cox.
All right, that's Sharrod Golightly, former Gamecock Spur. Really appreciate his time joining us here on GC Live. Hope you enjoyed that. Wanted to get to a few more clips, but I got to come up with a little bit of a better system there so we can kind of look at those on the side. I did it kind of the easier way in terms of kind of cutting those clips. We'll work on that a little bit. We'll go back and fix that to use some coach speak to close out the show today. But yeah, great stuff there from Sharrod, kind of looking back at his career. So Gamecock Ryan on the Primal Gourmet chat line, is Sharrod available to add to the staff? Sharrod would be a really good coach, man. He does a great job of explaining. He connects with people real well. Easy to see why he was a really smart player on the field and a really productive player, and also had some really good leadership qualities as well for the Gamecocks. If you got in these last few minutes any questions, any comments, drop them here on the Primal Gourmet chat line, and I will try to get to them. John Wilson from Facebook with another one. What's the status of Tonka? I haven't seen much of him this season. Tonka's playing in every game. I would say it is certainly fair to say he's not played as much as I anticipated in terms of his percentage. Tonka was a guy that I personally thought, honestly, coming into this year, may be able to push for a starting spot Instead, I think we've seen some other guys, Devontae Davis, for example, MJ Webb, for example. Those guys have been able to come up and take some snaps too. So Alex Huntley's been one. Rick Sandage remains out. So they have developed some depth there. They are playing a decent amount of guys. Of course, Zach Pickens, Jabari Ellis playing the lion's share of snaps as the starters. They're still getting the majority of snaps. Tonka's still a guy that does everything the right way, guy the staff likes. It is his first year playing inside a defensive tackle, so probably will continue to get better, and certainly a guy that I think still has a bright future and upside, but has not played as much this year. He is playing basically in every game. So, yeah, again, great stuff from Sharrod. If you're joining us a little bit late, go back and check out the interview with Sharrod. Just rewind, and you can check it out from the beginning. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit your little bell for notifications. That way you're notified each time we go live at GC Live. Appreciate everybody for joining us today. We got a few more minutes before we jump into a few more things from today's media availabilities. We'll take a second and tell you about Dead Soxy. Go check those guys out at deadsoxy.com. That's DEADSOXY.com. Check out their huge catalog of men's and women's socks. You see up in the top left corner the college line with the Spur socks. Go look at those and everything they have to offer at Dead Soxy. Get 25% off your order with the promo code COCKY. So going back to Satterfield, Clayton White, I didn't get a ton today. Not that he didn't say anything interesting. Just I'm not sure it was as newsworthy. We'll go back and look at some more of that stuff this week on Thursday, tomorrow's show, and Friday when Wes is back with me. We'll double back to anything extra that we get there. We are still looking at getting an A&M guest on either tomorrow or Friday. We're still working on that and working through that, but I fully anticipate we'll be able to do that. So look forward to those things. Going back to Satterfield, I was hitting on it a little bit before Sharrod came on. He talked about, some of the changes and the differences in this offense. And some of them, there are things that they're going to do a little bit more now that Zeb is in the game, a little bit more under center. Obviously, he's not going to run as much and things like that. But some of the things that they've already done as a staff, one of them that was interesting was the communication, right? Coming into the beginning of the year, they were not, for example, looking to the sideline really at all in the middle of a play to do checks and things like that, or looking to the sideline for calls, looking to the sideline for calls. And now they're doing that. So the way that Satterfield described it is they have peeled back some of the layers and gone a little bit less away from that NFL style towards a little bit more of the college game. And some of that may have been because of the personnel. Luke Doty's obviously suited for that a little bit more. Not that he made some good throws this year, et cetera, but just with his skill set. And look, they were having some communication issues early in the season when Zeb Nolan was in at quarterback. You look at EIU, you look at ECU, you look at the next few games, there have been communication issues. And so just going through and trying to fix some of those things. Obviously, not everything's fixed. They're still having some penalty problems. They're still having some execution problems. So those are things that they've got to get cleaned up. But was interesting to hear a little bit about that from Marcus Satterfield. Chris Turnberg on the Primal Gourmet chat line. Sorry that I'm late. No problem, Chris. Go back and check out what Sharrod Golightly said. Do we know who the backup quarterback will be? Right now, it is Jason Brown. According to Beamer on Tuesday, Marcus Satterfield addressed that today also. He just kind of said that he's got confidence in Jason, that he had a really good practice today on Wednesday. And they're confident if he needs to go in. And he did mention Colton Gauthier as well about how he's come along. But he said Jason Brown's light years from where he was back in the spring. So that's a positive if he needs to play. And another interesting thing he said is, he said, look, our guys realize, and Jason realizes that, given the data from this season, odds are there probably is going to be an opportunity you have to come in. We've seen, Luke Doty not get to start. So Zeb Nolan plays. We saw Zeb Nolan get his hand stepped on, so he can't play. We've seen Jason Brown come in when a guy's helmet came off. So there's probably going to be an opportunity or a situation in which a backup quarterback is going to need to come in. Charles on the Primal Gourmet chat line. Do you think Wes is listening right now? Better be. I mean, you know. So anyway, all right, guys and girls, appreciate everybody for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Again, if you missed Sharrod Golightly, great stuff from him. Go back, rewind, check out what Sharrod had to say. Really good stuff on the Gamecock defense this season, and also looking back at some of his time at South Carolina. Make sure you go check out GamecockCentral.com. Tons of stuff on the recruiting, the football front, men's and women's basketball, baseball recruiting from Colin Taylor. Tons of good stuff there. Mike Yuva, his work now featured, of course, on GamecockCentral.com. Wes and Chris, always referred to myself in the third person there. Chris Wellbaum, let's say that so I can correct my error. Wes and myself, content. Check us out on the Insiders Forum and on GamecockCentral.com. We will be back on Thursday. I will be joined, as usual, by Wes. So if you're a big Wes fan, as apparently many people are, you will get a reprieve because he will be back tomorrow. All right. We will see y'all then. Appreciate everybody for joining us.